one hungry reader here. It is December 19th. Time for more. Not a creature was stirring.
Kind of running out of different ways to say that. As a creative and brainstorming experiment, I submit to you this challenge. Who would you pick if you were assembling a league of extraordinary gentle mice? Well, you'd have to have Miss Bianca, Nils, and Bernard of the Rescuers, of course. And you'd need a gadgeteer, so perhaps you could pick Amos from Ben and Me, or, if you want to have it in a more present day, you could pick Gadget Hack Wrench. The brains of the team would, of course, be Algernon. Unless this were taking place in the 1800s, in which case you would want the great mouse detective himself, Basil of Baker Street. Basil of Baker Street is the ultimate Sherlock Holmes fanboy. He idolizes Sherlock Holmes so much, he literally moved in under the man's house and started stealing his stuff to be more like him. Single white mouse. Actually, that's not fair. There's a whole city of mice in Sherlock's basement. It's called Homestead. It was just Basil who happened to have the idea that everyone move there. Now, the interesting thing about Homestead is it has to be happening with Holmes's blessing. He's the world's greatest detective. He would know if there had been any mice, let alone a mouse who idolized him and dressed in an identical deerstalker cap and everything. He must have seen it and approved and told no one. Basil even has his own Watson analog, Dr. Dawson, who is the teller of this story. This mystery begins when two little twin mice are kidnapped when they follow a stranger into the candy store. Yes, this little mouse village has a candy store, and apparently a tobacconist from which Basil acquired his pipe, and apparently a lens grinder from which Mr. Basil acquired his magnifying glass and a powerful microscope. A ransom note arrives instructing Basil and all the other residents of Homestead to clear out or else they'll never see the twins again. What the Terrible Three wants is to have Homestead for their new base of operations. You know, if you're gonna be a master criminal, you probably shouldn't live directly underneath the world's greatest detective. I'm just blue sky in here! Basil is able to track the note due to the coal dust left on it by the delivery man, indicating that there are mice who mine coal. What kind of world is this? Basil and Dawson's sailor costumes help them to sneak aboard the ship where they think that the twins may be being held, but instead it delivers them into the arms of the Terrible Three themselves. You may not recognize me, but I can name each one of you. Barney the bank robber, Freddy the forger, and Percy the pickpocket. I love how one of the Terrible Three is a pickpocket. Maybe they could add a jaywalker to the group. There's a big fight aboard the ship with a bunch of mouse bobbies, and Basil and Dawson track the man who delivered the note in the first place, finding that he's actually the caretaker for the twins, who are thankfully unharmed. So your scheme failed, eh? In his poem To a Mouse, Robert Burns, a wise human poet, wrote, "The best laid schemes o' mice and men gang aft agly." Burns, man. I often wish that Burns had been a mouse. Well, wasn't there a mouse living under his house that wanted to be a poet? You know, this is something that they really explored even further in the Disney adaptation. In the Disney movie The Great Mouse Detective, so renamed because apparently Americans can't pronounce the word Basil, not only are there mouse versions of Holmes and Watson, but there's a mouse, or rather rat, version of Moriarty, and a mouse version of Queen Victoria. As above, so below. Mr. Conan Doyle, the Theosophist, would surely have approved. You know something? This actually brings a whole new meaning to the phrase, "Whose mouse are you?" In the Basil series, or at least in the movie, all mice are simply a reflection of some human that they aspire to be. Just as we all are ourselves. The Beatles were Elvis's mice. Just think of all the people that you stand in the shadow of, learning everything you can, and they never notice you, they never know you even exist. This book should be a reminder to everyone. Look down once in a while, watch your step, and keep an eye out for your mouse, because your mouse sees something in you that you may never see in yourself.